Welcome to the Coach Debbie Potts Show, where high performers learn how to stop guessing and start aging stronger, not slower. Your host is Coach Debbie Potts, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, metabolic health coach, and host of this show. Here, we dive into the why behind fatigue, stubborn weight, hormone chaos, gut issues, and declining performance. Using real data, functional lab testing, metabolism analysis, and simple daily habits that actually move the needle. Whether you're an endurance athlete, an executive, or simply committed to becoming your strongest future you, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
All right, I've got Dr. Jeff on the show, helping us figure out what we can do today to be our best self in the future, as I'm on a mission to help us want to strive to thrive mantra, right? So Dr. Jeff, thanks for coming on and sharing your knowledge with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to talk to you and everyone listening.
Yeah, well, let's get started. Who is Dr. Jeff? What do you do? And we'll kind of dive into your why and your purpose.
Well, I'm a recovering neurological surgeon. I have a spine fellowship. I took care of neck and backs for decades, still do some. But about 8 years ago, I opened my eyes, I put down the Kool-Aid, and I jumped into a re-education into regenerative medicine, the field of stem cells and exosomes and peptides and so many things, to find better ways of helping people without having to necessarily operate on everybody. Not that we were doing that, but we certainly need to diminish it. So that's kind of the summary of how I got where I am today and why I'm here, probably.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what I always love to hear, how people shifted from traditional medicine and moved towards a different approach, because they had probably similar mission that we want to help people. We want to guide them to be their best self, and looking at middle age, as we're saying, to be kicking butt when we're 80 and not struggling. And I think looking at the why, especially the brain health, the cognitive health, is a big motivation for me to do what I can do in my 50s to not have what I see, what's happening to my mom and all of her friends and everyone's parents, are just starting to struggle. So what do you think we should be doing today to be our best self in the future?
Well, I still think the muscles are the longevity organs. So if you use your muscles, and sometimes hard, use them so they release those exerkines or myokines, the small peptides that stimulate the brain health, the cardiac health, and the muscle growth, you'll have more muscle mass into the next decade and beyond. And muscle mass, of course, is correlated with healthy longevity. And of course, if you're using your muscles in a weight-bearing manner, you will be stimulating your bone density. And of course, most of your own stem cell activity comes from your bone marrow. So if you want to take care of your stem cell population to help keep you biologically younger, you got to exercise. It all comes back to that. And good exercise. Like walking is great, but it's not enough.
Well, that's what is interesting. I was listening to a podcast, Cynthia Thurlow, we were interviewing yesterday, and we're talking about exercise. And I was listening to Andy Gaplin. That's who she just interviewed. So I was like, I got to listen to that. And he was saying how your bone density, say at 60, depends on what you did when you're age 6 or 7 to age 12. And how it starts that young, but of course, not going to think about when you're age 7, what sports I should be doing to improve my future self at age 60. So what do you think we should be doing even before our 50s to work on the bone health and improving the tendons and the structure and the muscles?
Yeah, I don't want anyone listening to think that if you didn't exercise between age 6 and 12, that you're in trouble. We can do a lot to grow bone at any decade. Bone growth requires 3 ingredients, generally speaking. This assumes someone is healthy, has normal labs, but it does not require calcium. Everyone I take Tums, I've got calcium. You don't need calcium unless you're calcium deficient. I've maybe seen 2 people in my entire career that had low calcium in an ICU setting. We don't find low calcium in our environment.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is calcium needs to be driven into the bone. So those three ingredients are vitamin D3, and the sunlight is not enough. You
Mm-hmm.
have to supplement vitamin D3, and
Yeah.
vitamin D3 levels from your lab are not the levels that tell you how much grows bone. That's the do I have rickets level. So you need an optimal level, probably 100 to 125 on the lab, not 30. And the second ingredient is the weight bearing exercise we talked about. You're not going to grow bone if you're not stressing the
Mm-hmm.
cells in a mechanical way. Weight bearing. So I love cycling. I love swimming. Just doesn't grow bone. You need to have weight bearing. So that could be weights. It could be running, things like that. Elliptical is a little too smooth. Great cardio, but not great for bone. There are
Yeah.
some specific programs for exercising, like OsteoStrong, where you can build bone. Those are worth looking
Yeah.
at. And then the third ingredient would be optimal bioidentical hormone replacement or optimization.
Mm-hmm.
If you do not have youthful hormone profile, you will not grow bone.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So, you talked about from surgery first approach to focusing on regeneration, healing from within. What's kind of the order of operations you find how we should get started on that future self from working with from the inside out?
Epigenetics, lifestyle first. So if you're not sleeping well, if you're not your nutrition isn't on point, if your supplement game isn't right for you and what your goals are, if your exercise game isn't there, if you're not participating in some element of hormesis, which means a slight stress on
Mm-hmm.
your cells to build resilience, whether it's fasting, intensity exercise, hot sauna, cold
Mm-hmm.
plunges, low oxygen tension, things like that. You're not ripe for peptides, regenerative medicine, some of the other things. You just won't get as much out of them. So we have to dial in all those things. We check labs. We look at cellular functioning pathways. We look at toxins, parasites. Make sure you're clean and haven't been if you've been exposed to stuff during your life that you shouldn't have. We want to help your body rid yourself of that. So there's a lot that goes into getting ready for the kind of
Mm-hmm.
things we do on the higher end.
Plus, I would say preparing the terrain, right? We
Yep.
need to build that foundational blueprint before we add anything in, because I find it backfires if I throw in peptides or throw in hormones to someone. Your body needs to be ready
Yep.
first and
Yep.
have that good environment inside.
Agree completely.
Yeah. What have you found? Because I talk about this every time, is the nervous system and building resiliency to help people. What we'll get into regeneration and this longevity, but what have you found the role of the vagus nerve and thinking that safety versus survival mode?
Well, yeah, there's way too much, we'll call it anxiety or over neurostimulation in the world, whether it's the dopamine hits we're getting from our Instagram scrolling or whatever. And I'm guilty of it too. And we need to learn to do some breath work, do some meditation, stimulate the vagus nerve in ways so we have that balance. You do want the balance, and all this can be measured in your heart rate variability, which is a great metric. So if you're not tracking your HRV with
Yeah.
some kind of health tech, then might be worth looking at. I see you wearing a tech watch there. Which one is that?
Wrong watch. This is my Garmin, but
Yeah,
yeah.
perfect. So that's a great way, a sensitive metric for looking at, vagus nerve functioning. Vagus nerve is the master calming nerve, of course, in the body from the brainstem down, but you have to learn to tap into it, yoga breathing and,
Mhm.
putting your phone away and go and sit in the hot sauna because your phones
Yeah.
don't work well in there anyway.
I know. We have a sauna and don't take the phone in, and you can watch things in there on the screen, but yeah, people I find are doing all that stuff, but we tend to, as high performers, are type A overachievers and that are listening, tend to do all that to extreme. That is just, I would say, the Goldilocks effect. What's that right dose? As you said, the word hormetic is acute stress, but what is that magic dose for creating the right stimulation that you're looking for positive outcome versus what most people tend to do? I just
Yeah.
heard someone do 15 minutes in cold therapy in Alaska. It's like, wait, what? You're a female, middle age. Why are people doing 15-minute cold plunge in Alaska cold waters versus a minute or 2 minutes? So it's, what do you find is that
Well, listen to, it's
problem?
individualized. If there's someone who can tolerate 15 minutes of cold plunge and they get to a Zen state in there, good for them. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with it, unless you're hypothermic.
Yeah, I would think hypothermia is what I
Uh,
think.
if you need to lose some fat weight, shivering therapy used to be a big thing. About 25 years ago, there was an article in Wired magazine, which used to have some really good articles, not so great anymore, but they had a whole expose on shiver therapy. You would go into a cold water and you would basically stimulate the heck out of your mitochondria. You would shiver, which is a massive metabolic burn on
Yeah.
calories. People would lose weight. So, if you need that and you're willing to, find it within yourself to calm yourself and tolerate it, it is a survival response, an evolutionary survival response to be able to tolerate that.
Mm. Well, I think as we're getting older, high performers, middle age, as we're talking about, their bodies stop responding the way they used to. And so I think we think, oh, more is better. So I'm going to do more of this because it's still not working. Instead of thinking, okay, definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results until I'm just totally fried and totally broken down.
Yeah.
But what do you find is happening in middle age that our bodies, the signaling system's not working the same?
Yeah.
How do we
Well,
listen instead of pushing harder?
yeah, you're absolutely right. So we have, cellular activity is getting junked up with free radicals. Despite our best efforts, our
Yeah.
mitochondria are less efficient, less in number. We have more senescent cells. So our cells are sort of acting older as a population. They're
Mhm.
middle-aged, and we have fewer stem cells and fewer and lesser stem cell activity, so loss of quantity and quality across the
Mhm.
board in all these areas, and our pathways just aren't what they were in terms of efficiency.
Yes. Yeah, I think what even Cynthia and I were talking about is the microbiome and the immune system as we get older. And she's speaking to the menopause gut for women, the loss of estrogen, but you're speaking of, natural killer cells, the immunosenescence. Talk a little bit about the gut health and our immune
Yeah.
system as we get older.
Yeah, I mean, the immune system is kind of another good metric to track, not just the number of immune cells, but
Mhm.
their activity. One measure of that is through natural killer cell activity. And this is very granular. Like I do a lot of regenerative things. We do stem cells and stem cell derived exosomes and growth factors. And I do a lot of joint and spine work since that's my field. But we didn't have anything for cancer patients, which led me into immunotherapy and led me to natural killer cells and their exosomes. So we found that patients with cancer have a reduced immune surveillance activity, reduced number and reduced activity of their natural killer cells. And natural killer cells are a white blood cell, but they're probably 1% of our white blood cells. So white blood cells aren't even 100% of our blood cells, right? They're already a fraction, and then this is a fraction of a fraction. So we noticed that patients across the board with cancer have reduced NK or natural killer cells. And NK cells are supposed to go throughout the body and selectively remove abnormal cells, infected cells like parasitically infected cells, cancer cells, senescent cells, which are zombie cells.
Mm.
So part of that signaling relates to the gut microbiome. Of course, we could say that about any health pathway in the body is a gut
Mhm.
microbiome. And we are learning more and more about their interrelations, brain health, immune surveillance, loss of thymus activity over time, which is why some of these, thymic peptides are so incredible. So I probably colored outside the lines of the question already. So I'll hand
No,
it back to you.
I wanted to get into, I think of chronic stress and how we all experience it, but we're less resilient as we age. And so we need to do things differently, as I said, because we're more vulnerable, and improving our resiliency, I think, starts with the vagus nerve and getting the body to have that flexibility to shift sympathetic back to parasympathetic. Yep. And so it's similar to me as metabolic flexibility. We should be burning fat, go carbs when we need to run from that lion. Our nervous system needs to be resilient and bounce back and forth. But instead, we kind of get stuck in the sympathetic dominance, and how that impacts everything downstream, including this immune system. And what happens when people still think I'm exercising and I'm eating well, I'm eating healthy, or I'm eating clean. That is not just only thing we're looking at as we get older.
Right. I like the way you couch that, because we do talk about metabolic flexibility or adaptability, but in this is nervous system or autonomic adaptability is, how quick can your nervous system respond to a change? You see this in zebras, right? A zebra is just minding his own business, sort of, eating the tall grass, and just, chilling out. High vagus nerve activity, high parasympathetic activity, just relax. Then a lion comes chasing him, and he's able to, boom, turn on full speed, runaway activity, full on sympathetic. And then once the chase is off, he goes right back to eating grass like nothing happened, right? That is what we need to learn from the zebras.
Is that the book? Is that the book I have that I never actually read, to be honest, that Why Zebras Get Stripes?
Probably. I haven't read the book, but I learned
long time ago about adrenal fatigue, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I learned it from someone else, so they probably drew it from the book. But I mean, that it really is the optimal HRV, right? You adapt quickly with that control and variability, and it's an automatic control, and we can control that by learning how to get better sleep, how to not have alcohol, how to not over exercise, but also not under exercise. So for those high achievers out there that are trying to do more to overcome their midlife lack of full metabolic flexibility and response and muscle losses, they might dial it back, not dial it up. So HRV is a guide for you. Don't mistake that. Yeah, use it.
Well, I think it's so many people use these tools as Oura Ring, the Garmin, the Apple Watches, but I really believe that it's just good. It's helpful data. But if we really want to know, I want you to put a heart rate strap on and do, say, I use Sweetbeat Life, that I can see your heart rate variability from the heartbeat time, and figure that low frequency to high frequency, rather than the Oura Ring gives you some idea, but just, light back of your fingers. I find these advanced tools are helpful, but what about looking at when the tools fail, when the foundations are not restored, and what has to come first to rebuild the trust inside the system?
Yeah. So, back to the basics, right? Let's evaluate the sleep. Let's look at, your gut microbiome. Let's look at your, hormones. So many things that we look at across the board to see where we can improve the cellular metabolism. We call it metabolism, but cellular functioning pathways, which pathways are affected. We can do all kinds of metabolites or, metabolomics now. We can look at actually what's getting hung up in the cells and where you need help. So luckily we have the tech to do that. You're not going to find that in a traditional medical office.
What is immune signaling? Talk about that. It's like signaling. How's the body work and role?
Well, I mean, we would need, hours and hours to discuss each individual cytokine, but there are, cytokines or small signaling molecules from cell to cell in our body, and they get out of whack. And for example, we all heard this phrase, cytokine storm, during the COVID era, where we had too many of these pro-inflammatory things going on. It's like this massive allergic response of sorts, where the lungs would fill up with fluid and your chance of peril were very high. Well, we also have another set of cytokines that are anti-inflammatory. And the body gets out of whack, especially in our world where we're exposed to things that cause free radical damage, oxidation, um, and causing it, or we don't have the right ability to suppress it, maybe the right microbiome and things. So there are ways now to help improve or hack our immune system through the good cytokines, or stimulate our own cells to go back and make them again.
Hmm.
So that's kind of some of the strategies we use with the peptides and the regenerative medicine and the natural killer cell exosomes and things like that.
Can you explain again what exosomes are? What's the
Yes.
definition?
So all cells communicate with their environment. Their environment might be the space outside the cell, with the neighboring cells, maybe with distant cells. If it's a distant cell, it's usually a hormone type of communication, a protein or a peptide. But cells also release growth factors and other smaller peptides for the nearby cells to tell your neighbors, like a neighborhood watch, what's going on. Like, hey, I'm infected. Everyone, prepare your defenses. Or, hey, I'm healing an injury. Help me out. Here are the pathways we're tuning into. So a cell also communicates with its neighbors by sending out even smaller than a cell bubbles called extracellular vesicles that are chock full of microRNAs,
Hmm.
peptides, growth factors, heat shock proteins, all kinds of things that are taken in by a neighbor cell through a process of endocytosis. And these bubbles preserve them. Think about the good witch Glinda from Wizard of Oz, or Wicked coming down in a bubble. But that bubble delivers the contents to another cell. This is how cells communicate and
Hmm.
influence each other. So a cell can give off thousands of exosomes a day. Exosome is a cute word for extracellular vesicle. Exo meaning out of, some meaning the body of the cell. And these exosomes are all over. Now, when we use the word in the treatment sense, we're really talking about stem cell derived exosomes because they give an amazing healing anti-inflammatory signal. But one of the reasons you and I met was because we have access now to natural killer cell
Hmm.
exosomes, because we don't want to use general regenerative stem cell based things on cancer patients. But I didn't have anything for them, and we really wanted to help them because that's some of the basic things we go into medicine for. So we sourced some natural killer cell exosomes. They're very selective as to killing cancer cells. So this is a very exciting area of immunotherapy in regenerative medicine.
So is that used instead of chemotherapy, radiation, or on top of, you stack it until,
Either. Yeah, so we
okay.
have patients that do NK exosomes with traditional treatment. We have some that do instead of traditional treatment. We have some that do it because they're high risk for cancer. Maybe they have the BRCA gene or something and they want to take some action. We have some people that have already been treated for cancer in some other way, and
Hmm.
they would like to enhance their remission chances. So we might do it as a preventative in the bloodstream. We
Okay.
inject tumors with it. There's incredible research behind this too. We're not just shooting from the hip. It's out there and demonstrated.
So then how do you know who is it good for? Like you said, preventative. So if someone, what are some signs and symptoms that we should look at that we might want to start paying attention to this, that we should get this treatment, or, not wait until we have cancer?
Yeah, well, anyone at risk, whether it's maybe bad behaviors through most of your life, you're just now cleaning things up because you're taking action on longevity. Maybe you have a family history. Maybe you have a genetic predisposition. Those would be the people I would think would be interested in taking some type of preventative steps instead of waiting around.
What genetic SNPs would we look at? So if we did, like I was just working on a 3x4 genetic blueprint, just opened in Solana Beach here, their headquarters for the US, I think. But the reports, when you look at genetics, is there something we should be looking at when we're doing analysis of health optimization?
There are various
Mhm.
cancer SNPs we can look at, and we have a growing number to look at. And that would be another way to measure whether or not you want to take some preventative action.
Mhm.
But that's a developing field. We learn more and more about that every day.
Yeah,
I get
it's
up every
crazy.
morning and log in, check my emails, and And I have a whole list of alerts as to publications in the medical journals, things I look for in stem cells, natural killer cells, things like that. So we're looking at that daily. It's changing.
But what if you have, say, family members, parents that had cancer, and your grandparents, it says run in your family. You don't have to necessarily do genetic tests, but family history wise, it's
Oh,
happened to
I would
others.
still do the genetic testing if you can. The reason being, the prior generation, there were a lot of smoking and other behaviors, that we're now looking back saying, "Oh, that was wrong." So we don't know if theirs was genetic or theirs was, self-inflicted. They didn't mean to probably, but
Mm.
it's out there, all kinds of things. Looking at the last few decades of female hormone optimization, it was absent, right? It was just not there. And we're now seeing that that may have had a relation in contributing, or a lot of the synthetic replacements, synthetic estrogens and things, the Prempros and the Premarins and things just weren't they weren't doing the right thing
The
at
horse urine wasn't working.
yeah, horse urine wasn't working. Exactly.
So with your focus area, is it cancer or are you covering other areas? Who do you serve?
No, cancer is just something that I needed to have something to offer people because, Hippocratic Oath calls for us to help the suffering, and those people are suffering tremendously.
Mhm.
And we'd love to help find a way to, and strategically that doesn't have side effects. So far, the natural killer cell exosomes have had no side effects. We have very limited supply. They're very hard to come by. It's hard to get enough natural killer cells and then have them produce natural killer exosomes. We source these from Europe. Europe is way
Yeah.
ahead of us,
I was just
and
gonna ask,
Asia.
tell what are I they're not something I dig out of the ground. So what
No,
are
no,
they from?
they're from healthy donors that donate blood, and then from the blood, the very, very, very small percentage of the cells, the natural killer cells, are collected in volume, and they're allowed to grow in culture or flasks. We call them culture, but and then those cells give off exosomes, and then over time you accumulate enough of the exosomes, so then they're made available. So when I got a hold of my first batch just over a year ago, and this has become something we make available, but I bought probably a quarter of the supply this lab had at the time. And you can also use these to kill off your senescent cells. It's an anti-aging therapy, but I'm not using it for that because we have so few doses. I want to save it for my cancer patients. So there's a study using, natural killer cells to reduce age markers, senescent cell markers like beta galactosidase for up to 2 years after a single infusion. So it's
Well,
quite significant. It's not the only thing I would do if you're facing risks of
mhm.
cancer or cancer. And we talk about diet and exercise and certain supplementations and high dose vitamin C. There are all kinds of things we do. This is one additional tool we have at our disposal.
Hmm. Crazy. So how do these therapies selectively target abnormal cells without harming healthy tissue?
They have certain markers that they look for, and they look for cells that don't have the usual, markers on their surface, and they selectively pick out those. And the exosomes are highly specific, and the exosomes contain enzymes that, once they go into the abnormal cell, they cause it to lyse or open up or kind of commit cell suicide.
Hmm. Hmm. Crazy how the body works, isn't it?
Right?
So the other question was, how does the nervous system regulation we talked about and perceived safety influence immune signaling and cellular repair?
Well, the immune system is adversely affected if you are stressed. So that's a combination of vagal tone,
Mhm.
other um, neuropeptides that signal in the body, how that affect the microbiome, And there's a lot that goes on. So the more you can use your brain and your mind to, you know, get control of that, the better the cytokine profile or the peptide profile that you're releasing internally
Mm.
can help. Now we do now have exogenous or external peptides you can deliver to help support that. So there are some anti-cancer peptides. We know thymosin alpha 1 would be one of them. We use MOTS-C for mitochondrial health, which helps fight cancer because we know that mitochondria are messed up in cancer. So if you can fix the mitochondria, that helps those cells. Um, it helps the immune system. There are others. Some are very difficult to come by, but a lot of these are naturally occurring peptides in your body, but getting extra help because you're obviously deficient, just like your natural killer cells are deficient typically when you have a cancer diagnosis. That's not necessarily cause and effect, but it's certainly interesting that your body finally made a cancer because we make cancer cells all the time accidentally, but they get cleared out by the natural killer cell system until they can't. And
Mhm.
that's when something bad happens.
So what kind of functional lab testing would we do to identify if this is happening early on, as we discussed? But as an FDN practitioner, we're always about test and not guess
Well,
and put the patterns together.
yeah, we like to look at toxic, mold panels. We do organic acids. We want to see if any pathways need some love, and we look at there are some cancer specific pathways we can look at. Again, back to the genetic SNPs, you can do metabolomics. We could test and test and test, but
What are your
uh,
key ones? Like if you just only could do 3 labs, what would you want to see for somebody?
I like to screen for parasites. I like to or sometimes just cleanse for them.
Mm.
So let's skip the test and just cleanse as if, or we'll talk about use of ivermectin, febendazole, things like that to work on that. We know that natural killer cell function will work there as well. I love organic acids. I want to make sure things are dialed in. Sometimes we use mitochondrial tests.
Which one do
Um,
you like?
Still don't have a favorite in the show yet, but they're not cheap, so that's a consideration as
Yeah.
well. But organic acids help give you a sense of what's going on in the mitochondria, so sometimes that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you just skip the testing, and if someone's low on energy and they have other symptoms, you might try a mitochondrial repair protocol. If they have high spike protein from vaccination, there's a lot of mitochondrial damage. We want to fix the mitochondrial membrane, perhaps with some peptide SS31. Then, after a month of that, come in and help the functioning of the inside of the mitochondria with perhaps some MOTS-C, some humanin-like fragments, other mitochondrial peptides. It's like a cell within a cell. You have to kind of take care of them and take care of your cells at the same time.
So you're talking about natural killer stem cells, and then you're speaking to peptides. Kind of walk us through a little bit of what you're treating people, not just cancer, health optimization, people, family history, genetics. But how are you bringing in the peptides into the
Well,
picture and explain that?
yeah, peptides have just been growing in their availability and utility over the last 5 years of my practice, starting with GLPs. And we may use GLPs in a low dose in a cancer patient. They have incredible metabolic effects. And we've actually, I just saw a paper on use of retatrutide to help reduce liver tumors. So whether that's sugar utilization, effect or not is unclear, but these are very simple things you can do. They're not difficult. They have a low side effect profile if used properly. We also, again, we go to mitochondrial repair peptides for various things. People come in with low energy. They come in with, or we have healing. A lot of people healing or repairing from overdoing it or from an injury, and we use a lot of musculoskeletal repair peptides. BPC-157, TB500, KPV, suppress inflammation. We use a lot of copper peptide internally and for skin health. And of course, for the brain and nerve function, there are different peptides, cerebral lysin, ARA290. I mean, I could go on with the list of things and
Yeah.
we're trying to source others. They have repair peptides for vision that we just can't get yet. So, and we're trying to get, more of the anti-aging and anti-cancer FOXO4 DRI, very difficult to come by. And Klotho, Klotho. Klotho is huge.
Can you just explain, go backwards, what are peptides and where do they come from when
Sure.
you get a syringe of them, but where's the
Yeah.
sourcing?
Yeah. I mean, peptides are small protein fragments, chain of amino acids. When we say peptides, the real word is oligopeptides, which means oligo means few. So few amino acids, usually less than 20. So you look at your GLPs, or BPC-157 has 15 amino acids. KPV, I think, has 3. So it can be very small fragments. We have peptides that course throughout our body naturally. Most of these do. GLPs do not exactly. They're slightly modified with changing an amino acid or something, but they're still peptides. So these are where we make a strategic change in a peptide. So, just like hormones, some of our peptide utilization and production in our own body, it diminishes over time, and you can strategize or hack an improvement by replacing or giving a boost of them, and that's really what we're doing. And this is really a great way to help avoid the use of drugs, pharmaceuticals, and heal things without surgery or cortisone injections, maybe. So, we use a lot in the musculoskeletal space. We stack them with some of our regenerative injections when we do cartilage regenerative injections, various things we use them for.
So it's peptides are our body makes them normally, but as
Right.
we age, it's same thing with every collagen, creatine. What we don't really think about, which I think health optimizers are starting to think about, what's changing as I age. Why am I getting wrinkles? Why is my brain getting foggy? And not, I would say, don't blame the aging process. Understand what our body's making less of it, and take ownership of your health today, and
Yep.
take those with whatever we can do, ideally from food, and the way we can do it from exercise. But you're saying some things we just can't get enough of like magnesium, but we need to supplement. But
Right.
with the peptides, GLP-1, people don't understand it's actually something your body makes, and that you're seeing all these, $1 billion plus $1 trillion falling from companies making off of it to help weight
Yeah.
loss. But just for that one is more common word for the mainstream peptide. Can you just speak to that, your body, how it is already there, and why do we have less of them?
Yeah, I mean, our cells become less efficient at making the good signals, and these peptides are signals, just like exosomes are signals, and other proteins and growth factors are signals. Hormones are signals, and the cells just aren't, their factory just can't put out like they used to, and that's why we need sometimes a little help in bringing back a more useful profile of what that looks like at the cellular level. So, I call it, and others call it biohacking. It sounds kind of, dangerous and dirty, but that's what we're doing. We're strategically, you know, tricking the system back into a youthful state, and the benefits can be amazing. If done correctly, you got to behave and don't go crazy.
Should you take them long term?
We individualize care. So if someone has a need for them long term, yes. If someone needs them in burst fashion on an as needed basis, ad hoc basis, then they need it that way. We try to cycle some of these on and off, but I have some people that need, we call it a Wolverine protocol. They need the BPC 157, TB 500 low dose constantly. And they just can't get by without it. They have too much, joint pain or something. So it's a lot better than chronic use of anti-inflammatory drugs. So we just track it well and make sure they're healthy and test them frequently.
Do you have to make sure, going back to the train theory, that their train environment is okay? And you're saying testing frequently, is that blood work to make sure they're okay
It can be,
taking them?
different measures, sometimes just an annual or every 6 month blood work is adequate. Just depends on the person, what we're doing, what we're looking at. checking on them, make sure they're, a lot of these patients are doing peptides on their own and they just need some oversight. So we do a lot of that, making sure they're using them responsibly, getting them from a good source that's got, proper third-party testing, no contaminants, purity level is there. So things like that.
That was my next question. Is the sourcing and dosage or delivery mechanism that, you see so many companies, I know there's some multi-level marketing, make wellness, that they're doing peptides. And so there's so many different claims of peptides. And why do you feel it matters for the sourcing and delivery injections versus a capsule or tablet or powder or whatever?
Listen, let's talk about how these are made. So the peptide typically come from a resin that's made. A lot of these are made in India, shipped to China where they're rarefied, and then shipped to the U.S. suppliers. So when people say, "Oh, don't buy them from China," they're all coming from China. They're not made here. Even if they come through Canada, they were made in China. So let's not worry about that. Any reputable source, lab, pharmacy that's then, putting these into single dose uses, or not single dose, but single patient uses, has to do third-party testing to import these. That third-party testing looks at purity and contaminants. So they come with what's called a COA, a certificate of analysis. That's a reputable source. You want 99% pure or better, and you want no contaminants. And they're available here in the US through those sources. There are sources that can't give you the testing data. So those I'd be cautious about. The pharmacies that produce these, it's no different than big pharma. They have to follow what's called pharmaceutical grade, pathways. These are CGMP clean labs. Many of them are registered with the FDA to be pharmacies or registered in their state. They get audited, they get inspected. So I don't want to have any fear mongering, about other sources, but you can get totally reputable sources in the U.S. without trouble.
Good to know. And then is it always best to do liquid injection versus capsule, tablet, some other delivery?
The subcutaneous, just under your skin, liquid injection is the way to get bioavailability, with the exception of some gastrointestinal repair with BPC 157 you can do orally, and with the exception of some topical use of GHKCU, the copper peptide, for hair and for skin, although internally works better. The bioavailability of injected is something like 50 to 100 times better than oral. So you can take oral peptides, you're just going to take a lot of them to get a benefit because you digest them. You digest peptides just like you digest protein in your gut. So a lot of them get destroyed along the way. So subcutaneous injection is the best. They have things now, they have new formulations under the tongue. They have these strips I've tried that dissolve in your palate, things. They just don't have the bioavailability. We just posted a scientific piece on that on our social media channels last week or week before, comparing the bioavailability of peptides and small proteins with reference studies. So the subcutaneous, if you want the benefit, don't goof around.
Well, plus, I'm just curious if Board of Operations of digestive system, if it's already peptide, has to bypass the stomach acid, but if it's protein's already broken down to amino acids into peptides, how does it get damaged getting into the body if it's kind of pre-digested protein?
Through the oral mechanism?
Mm.
Oh, because you have, enzymes in your stomach and intestine that take a peptide and break it into amino acids. When our body can use those amino acids, that's what it's designed to do, right? We build those back into proteins, but we don't get the therapeutic benefit from the peptide if you break it down.
Yeah, good to think about. All right, so a couple more questions. As people are high performers, they often, I find, are fit and healthy on the outside, but they're struggling from the inside. And as I said earlier, they think they're doing all the right things. What do you find is when people are struggling the most? Do you see any correlations to patients you see that are exercising all the time, but they don't understand why they're not feeling better?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, that's why I'm a big fan of HRV. And I don't go into the detailed, chest strap, because I think we get some data from the others, at least trend data. But you can go more detailed, and we look at VO2 max in some people. Mitochondrial health we keep coming back to that. We see the people that are over utilizing their batteries, their mitochondria, have mitochondrial deficits. And sometimes they just need to dial it back a little bit, maybe get some mitochondrial repair. There are some new therapies coming that we will have soon that are called mitochondrial transfer therapy, where you get new and more mitochondria, so you can get more out of your performance.
I need some of
That's
that.
coming. Yeah, it's also an idea. It's also a treatment they're using for frailty in China, to help build muscle mass and things like that. So stem cells, if you do stem cell therapies, which we have, they can donate mitochondria, but we're looking at exosomes stuffed with mitochondria as a delivery mechanism. So that's coming.
That's interesting. So I did a mitochondria test last April, and I would like to do it again, but I've done so many videos on it on my YouTube channel because I was so shocked. And this is what I talk about all the time, being fit and healthy on the outside, but the inside at a cellular level, oh my gosh, I was over in the red line of oxidative stress. And then I tied it with my GI map and my genetic reports. I've done multiple ones over the years, and I looked at all my SNPs. I was shocked. And that's why I'm so passionate about people that are these high performers. You need to take ownership of your health and not just assume you're good on the inside. So what would you feel would be, truly fit and healthy from the inside out at a cellular level? What does that look like if they're trying to build their future you blueprint?
Yeah, I keep coming back to mitochondria. I think that's a bigger and bigger piece of the pie. Because if you take care of your mitochondria, your cells function better.
Yeah.
Your cellular pathways are working better. The mitochondrial signals your own DNA transcription, picks good genes for you if your mitochondria are healthy. So I think you go in terms of cellular root cause, I start with mitochondria. Of course, we look at other cytokines in the body, interleukins, TNF alphas, it's a cytokine profile. It tells us what's going on. It's a biopsy of your cellular activity. So again, we see people that are, either under supplemented in certain ways. We see a lot of people that don't have enough vitamin D. We see, people who need more omega-3s in their system. We see people who actually are low on cholesterol, and that actually affects negatively your cellular membrane function and the receptor activity at the cellular level. We're seeing an epidemic of that, actually. People come in, I'm so happy my cholesterol is 180. Well, guess what? It's too low. And you're increasing your risk of dementia at that number. You want 200 to 220-ish, maybe a little higher. So there's a lot going on out there. Don't listen to big pharma, put down the Kool-Aid like I did.
That makes me so mad. I just did a podcast, I think it comes out soon, and I did a rabbit hole podcast, which I've been trying to do more. Look at low cholesterol, because I know someone that's been double statins from a high concierge system doctor program they're seeing. And because he has soft plaque, they put him on double statins. And they're trying to push his cholesterol down to 0. And I just think that's malpractice. It just makes me so angry that you're paying a ton of money a year and you're getting people still telling people to lower your cholesterol needs to be going down to 0. It's just dementia, just the cell membranes, just bile. It's just they're not getting it. It's frustrating, isn't it?
And you cannot make testosterone or estrogen or progesterone if you do not have cholesterol.
That's sex hormones,
the molecule
cholesterol.
it comes from.
I know. Look up your sex hormone chart. Top of the chart, cholesterol. I just had someone just tell me they haven't eaten eggs for years because they have high cholesterol. I'm like, why are we still talking about this? It's amazing.
Is, the popular press put it out there decades ago, right? That they were
Yeah.
bad. Yeah, you need your arachidonic acids, you need your cholesterol, you need your protein. Eggs are a great way.
Mm. Yeah, it's just
And
sad.
and vitamins
Yeah,
too.
I think that's important. So what are you doing to help people? Where can we get more information about you and how's your kind of process?
Yeah, I'm here based in the greater Las Vegas area. We do a lot of telehealth. So most of my patients do not live in Las Vegas. They live somewhere else. Mostly in the States and Canada, a few outliers beyond that. And we do consultations. We start out, what are your not only your healthcare needs, what are your healthcare desires? Is it longevity? Is it healthy longevity? Is it physical performance? Is it, mental clarity, getting more out of your day? And we customize it, the consultations and the follow-ups and the testing for that person's goals. So very few people actually have to come to our clinic. If you are going to do some kind of regenerative treatment, you have to come see me, of course. But everything else can be remote, and we can coach you along the way, answer all your questions. Sometimes I learn something new from patients. They bring me a new
Mm.
issue to look up,
Yeah.
and we do the deep dive and we see what's out there. And if there's some good science on it somewhere, we might offer it to someone. Hey, you want to try this? Here's the medical paper on it. This seems reasonable. It's logical, and we approach new problems that way. We take on a lot of second opinions, complex problems. About a third of my practice is joint and spine, pain, people trying to avoid a joint replacement. We have some incredible before and after MRIs showing cartilage thickening. You can regenerate your cartilage. It's possible. I can't make that as a claim. The FDA has not approved anything for that claim yet, but we can show you examples. That's legit. And I can show you the science it's based on, the medical evidence behind it. About a third of my practice is, we'll call it longevity or inflammatory wellness, autoimmune issues that we might approach, long COVID, Lyme's, problems that haven't been sorted out and want to come at it from a new angle.
Yeah.
And then the last third is a hodgepodge of, the cancer patients, peptide therapies, cutting edge wellness, performance. Um, we do a little bit of cosmetic and aesthetics here with regenerative medicine, things like that.
So what would you say is the future of regenerative medicine? What do you see?
We see tissue specific exosomes coming. So you wouldn't just have stem cell based, you'd have neural stem cell based, or you'd have skin stem cell based for skin problems. So it'll be more specific and granular. The mitochondrial transfer therapy, other enhanced immune therapies. Again, most of this through exosomes. Exosomes are in our environment, they're part of our health. You can get exosomes from bone marrow, bone broth, chicken soup. We get exosomes from plants. We have a nutraceutical based on that for phytonutrient delivery, for longevity. There are, exosomes delivered to the cells better than any other mechanism. So if you want to get something into your cell, not just into your bloodstream, because remember, blood tests don't measure what's in your cells, right?
Mm.
This is the way exosomes are the way to do it. They have a membrane that's taken in by our cells.
Mm. Who is this not for?
Uh,
Anyone?
well, it's not for someone that has a contraindication. So generic regenerative stuff, we don't do those things on people with cancer because we don't want to give the cancer a growth advantage. There's certain peptides we don't want to use on patients with cancer. So that's why we now have the natural killer cell for those people. Um, it's certainly not for anyone closed-minded who is drinking the Kool-Aid that the traditional doc that I've been fed in my medical education and for so many years. So if you're not open to it, people that are open to it have an appetite to at least ask about it from an objective, open-minded place. I think that's important.
Hmm. Amazing. So it's fascinating area. I think it's what I'm trying to share is what we can do today to be our best self in the future. I call it the Future You Blueprint, and doing everything we can do before we have problems, before we're having cancer or any chronic diseases. I really feel that we can get insight if we're getting those red flags, if we are more vulnerable to those different chronic diseases, and pay attention.
100%. I'm with you there.
Good. Well, where can people learn more? Where do we want to send them?
Thank you. Our clinic and brand is called ReCELLebrate, because you're celebrating the renewal of your cells.
Love that.
And that's spelled ReCELLebrate. And it's our website, it's our Instagram, it's our LinkedIn, it's our Facebook, it's our Pinterest, it's everything. Just put in ReCELLebrate. We pretty much cornered the internet on that market, on that word.
That's good. I love that. It's a great word. It's very positive energy too.
Thank you.
So thanks so much for your insight on helping us be fit and healthy from the inside out at a cellular level.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Coach Debbie Potts Show. If today's episode sparked a light bulb moment, that's your sign to stop guessing and start building your personalized future you blueprint. You can learn more or book a discovery call at www.debbiepotts.net. Be sure to follow the show on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search Coach Debbie Potts. 2 T's. If this episode helped you, please subscribe, rate, and review. It's how we help more people age with strength, energy, and clarity. Until next time, remember, age is inevitable. How you age is not.